Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Fix My Fees podcast, where merchant processing is so boring. I bring on interesting guests to talk about their business and drop some advice for our listeners here on the podcast. I am your host, Tavious Washington, and today we have us the owner and CEO and founder of Core Progression, Jon Cerf. How you doing today, Jon?
I'm good. Thanks for having
me. So, one of the things I do feel like is people think about, but don't really dive into as much is their physical health, right? We talk about it, think about it, but in the entrepreneurial world, usually money is at the forefront and then slowly getting out of that. But for you, you have been in this industry, well, at least from your LinkedIn, it says you've been learned about health in college, but you've been having your business for almost 20 years now. How did you get involved into a part of being like an elite training society?
Yeah, no, couple of things in there to unpack. I think everyone does focus on their wealth until they don't have health, and then they use their wealth to get their health back. So, I think those are things that, studying in college and coming out with an exercise science degree, originally thought I was going to be doing more of a med school track and, ultimately wanted to help people live better, more fulfilled, healthier lives. And took what I thought was going to be a couple months stint from undergrad to post-grad and got into being a trainer. I'd always loved athletics and working out, and pretty quickly realized maybe this is a better path to helping people actually get the results, change their lives for the better, be more of a preventative than a reactive type of a practitioner. So at the ripe old age of 23, launched Core Progression, and here we are.
Yeah, the way you said it was so funny. The way you were saying it, I was like, wait, am I mixing up my timeline maybe? Because you're like, the better way to help people and to train them. And I'm just so used to trainers in their 30s and their 40s. Like, I've been doing this for so long, looking back, that it threw me off for a second until you said the 23. Yeah. So why so early did training catch your attention? What was it about helping people that made you want to keep doing it versus like, hey, let me just peak myself out first and then go back to it later?
Yeah, I think, when you get to see somebody receive it, getting a result, whether that's, hey, I made varsity as a freshman, or, my cholesterol came back in a better range, or I got 30 pounds off me and I'm feeling good. I think there's a lot of jobs that you can help people, but don't have that level of altruism or, give you that initial jolt of like, hey, I'm building a relationship. And even, most of the times in medicine, you might see them only when they're at a place that, hey, I'm sick, or I have this surgery, or,
Right.
It's not, not that you might not have a patient for years. There's not really that ongoing level of relationship that gets established with a trainer where you're seeing these people 1, 2, 3, 4 times a week, for years. And it's like, some of my clients were at my wedding, and it's something that you develop a relationship in a different form versus I'm just treating you on an as needed basis, or, even like a dentist, you see him twice a year, maybe. This is a much more in-depth, relationship. And I think not only does the physical training manifest, there's so much that goes along with emotional and psychological components as well. And I think that's where people get stuck, sometimes psychologically, that has a physical manifestation. And so we're treating the brain with a physical outcome and product. But, I think that's where a lot of times people get themselves to a position where, hey, I need to lose 100 pounds, not just because you kind of had a few too many French fries a few times, or, didn't dial your health. There's usually other things going on, and being able to come alongside, help them on that journey, super rewarding, and to see an impact pretty quickly is awesome.
Yeah. It's like the people who ruin their credit over a long time and then expect that, get back to 800 overnight. That's not how it works. And there was a lot of factors that went into that you got to change. So what is it like? What was the idea behind starting Core Progression?
Yeah.
And then where has it grown to since then? Because it has been quite a while, which is awesome.
Yeah. I've been an entrepreneur since I was little. My parents would tell me stories when we went to Florida to go to the beach. I'd be collecting seashells and then selling them on a towel to tourists as a 2-year-old. So, I think it's been something kind of always just in my DNA. I had landscaping companies, snow shoveling companies. So, it was one of those that always kind of worked for myself and didn't think that that would change as I got older. Not surprising. Worked at a big box chain for about a year as a trainer. And then, kind of was like, all right, if I'm going to do this as a career, I'm going to do it a little bit differently. And,
Right.
at the time being that age, I didn't really have the resources. I didn't have, wealthy backers or loans or, a rich uncle that died and left me money. And so I kind of looked at it and it was like, what can I be the best at? And, I figured I can give the best training experience, and I couldn't afford a lot of space. I couldn't afford a lot of equipment, but I could give you an experience that would be better than anything else you could receive. And so that's kind of what I started to really build and focus on was how do we give an elite level experience and elite level results? And, my first space was probably like 900 square feet. And then I expanded pretty quickly within about a month and took over another space next to me. And then within a year, we were busting at the seams from that. And so I went and got something about 3 times bigger and then opened up another location. And currently we have 9 open operating locations. Our 10th location is about to open in about a month. So it's definitely been a journey over the last 18, 19 years, but it's something not only to grow and scale a brand, but I did the math, the other day, probably over 500,000 training sessions and, been
Wow.
able to really touch a lot of people's lives in that time period as
That's
well.
crazy. Nice. Yeah, because when I saw it on your LinkedIn, what it was called was like the ultimate training elite boutique experience or something like that, right? Like, how does that factor into the experience that they have with you versus I'm going to Planet Fitness to go do this by myself real quick?
Yeah. Not to give people a history lesson, but the boutique fitness category didn't even really exist when I first started this. It was something, there was kind of LA Fitness or Planet Fitness, I think started in 2006. And so they had just kind of come online, but it was really, you had Bally's, you had 24-hour fitness. You got to had a few players in the space. Maybe cities had rec
Back
centers.
when we was doing Tybo from home.
Yeah. Yeah. The home DVD workout.
Yeah.
So there wasn't really kind of this concept of more specialized or, most trainers worked out of their basements or, they worked for these big companies. And so Orange Theory came online, I think it was around 2010. And so you started to see this kind of formation of, hey, it's exercise, but it's more specialized or, as they call it, boutique. And so to me, we don't offer open gym memberships. When you come there, you're meeting with that coach. We have physical therapists, chiropractors, we've had massage therapists, acupuncturists. So really kind of an entire ensuite of wellness providers, dietitians, really to help them, whatever their fitness needs might be. And so, curating that experience. And then also I've developed the core progression training methodology or the core progression system. And so, different than if you went to a Planet Fitness or Lifetime or any of these other places, your experience is going to be derived by the coach that you get assigned to or who you work with. And not that there's not phenomenal trainers out there. It can be a very varied experience. And
Right.
get somebody good, you could have a great experience. If you get someone not so great, it very much depends on their background knowledge and whatever. And so not only to scale an organization, did we need more consistency of the experience, but a methodology that's been proven that works, that has, like I said, hundreds of thousands of workouts behind it to then, hey, when you come in, we got a recipe. I mean, you look at, restaurants that do well and you're going there not necessarily because of the server, but because of the consistent food experience that you're expecting and that they're going to have that level of quality time and time again. Wanted to do the same thing when it came to someone's health and fitness with the same customization. No different if you want a burger and you don't want tomatoes on it, they can make an
Right.
adjustment. We can do the same type of thing. Oh, you got a shoulder injury or a knee issue or you got a low back thing. We can modify the exercises to meet your needs physically, but still have that underlying base of experience and expertise that everybody gets to have.
Yeah, especially if you have to go to different locations for whatever reason. If you were used to your one person or that person leaves,
Mm-hmm.
man, I had a physical trainer one time and he left and I got
Yep.
another one. And I was like, I'll never do this again. And you're right, because it was just one person was pushing me and it felt like better. And the other person was pushing me and I was always hurt. It was always injuries after injuries after that. And so
Yeah.
being able to have that. So you created the core progression just over time, or was
hmm
that something that was a part of like your first initial process of
No,
getting it?
definitely over time. And, I think coming out with a degree and taking certifications helped form that, but real life experience, it's kind of like some of these surgeons that'll develop a new technique or methodology. As they're in there, they see, oh, I could do this better or whatever. And so, this
Mm.
has been something that has been decades in the making, me getting real life feedback, quantifying and measuring the results of the clients that we get, knowing, what modalities to apply, and then really kind of coming up with this entire ecosystem that then, hey, we know it works. We have the data. And, I think for most people, what they really wrestle with when it comes to starting down that fitness journey is, will it work? I think those are the
Yeah.
questions that are in the back of everybody's mind. And if you look at our society, there's very few times or things that, hey, I go spend money for those sneakers. I walk out with the box. I want that food. I'm getting it within 15 minutes. I want to change how my body looks. Well, that might be 3, 5, 6, 10 months to really accomplish that. I don't really know what it's going to look like. Oh, and you need me to pay today and tomorrow and the next day. And so it really
Yep.
kind of goes counter to
Yep.
how our society works, what our psychology is. We very much want to see what that looks like. And you have to put in effort. I think those are the other things is, it doesn't come without getting up, showing up, putting in time, effort, and energy. And so if I could give people assurances or say, hey, we've taken many people down this path before, we have something that we can see what that end goal would look like, it kind of lowers that, that fear or stress that someone might have of, well, is it going to work? And I'm going to feel dumb if I spent this time, effort, money, and then I end up right where I was to start with. What was the point? I hear it often as people come in, oh, I've tried this, it didn't work. I tried that. And there's
Right.
that hesitancy. And so for me, it's like, if we can kind of break that bridge down, it makes it a lot easier for people to, to walk the path.
I also think it's almost acceptable failure sometimes to pay. You know what I mean? Like if I pay $19 for Planet Fitness and I don't use it and it goes 3 months, I may forget about it. It's like
Yeah.
your Netflix subscription, right? You can forget about it. But the moment someone has to invest more time, you're expecting much greater results, but then you also mentally say, I have to do it to make sure it's worth it.
Yeah.
How do you deal with a person like myself who is like, I go to my apartment one and do it, yet I know it's not giving me the full benefit of if I
Yeah.
had a trainer and things like that.
Yeah. And, part of me starting the model the way I did is it is expensive, but people aren't going to let it, set it and forget it. And I think, coming out of the big box world, it almost felt criminal to be like, hey, we make the majority of our money by you not using what we do. And,
Right.
I think that
Right.
just didn't sit right with me. It was like, I didn't want to build a great company because the price point was so low that people never used it or never showed up. You look at the great organizations in our society and they're not there typically because I just put it on autopilot and it was cheap enough that I don't care. No, they're consuming it and they're using it and it's something that's part of their lives. And so, knowing that, hey, we're going to charge a premium, this is going to be something that you are making an investment to, not only more people don't let that money go to waste, or they're going to show up, or they're going to make sure that they get the outcome that they want because it is meaningful. And so I think, those were things where, hey, if you don't come for a week or two, we're calling you like, yo,
Mm.
why are you not here? Planet's not going to, they're never, they hope that you change your phone number and they never have to, change your phone number, not your credit card. And I think it's things that's a different level and we're playing a different game to make sure that this is going to be successful. Kind of to your second point, for the people that go put time, effort, and energy, and I always tell them, like, your time is worth something. You might not, look at it through that lens, but
Yeah.
hey, if you're going to your apartment complex gym every single day and spending 30, 40, an hour and a half there, and you're not getting what you want, that is costing you something. And
Right.
so, kind of reframing as, hey, yes, this is going to be a monetary investment on top of a time investment, but you're already making an investment and not getting anything out of it. Might as well, at least try to get where you're going and come back with more education and point you in the path if you're going to be taking your time. Otherwise, what's the point of you going and just walking in circles It's like if you want to go to California, that's fine. You're just getting outside and walking around your apartment complex day after day and be like, not getting closer to California doesn't make a lot of sense.
I like that analogy. I like that. So, okay. So when people start to look at it, I'll put myself, out there, if I started to think in something like that, right? Let's say I live close and I want to go in, that does feel like a lot, like overwhelming to know that you have everything in there that I need. How do I, where do I get started? How do I get started? What's like the way that you kind of bring people in
Yeah.
to the mold of core progression?
Yeah. So our big thing is we start with a movement assessment. And this is, something that I think is very different in the industry. A lot of times people look, oh, you look like you're in decent shape. Let's just hit it. For me, I want to see how your body moves in every single plane of motion. So we run you through a series of tests. And then based on that, feedback's going to drive what your initial process is going to be. And, this is where with the core progression training system, biomechanics is the first part of our program. And, I think this is where I see so many people is, hey, you're taking the time, you're like, oh, I want to build my chest bigger. Well,
Right.
you have, shoulders that are inverted because of sitting in front of a computer all day. So every time you go get under that bar, you're just building up your shoulders. You're not actually tapping into the chest muscles because of a mechanical issue, not because of an effort issue, not because necessarily you're not doing progressive overload. It mechanically won't tap into the muscles because of
Right.
your posture's oriented. That's where having partnerships with the physical therapists, the chiropractors, some of it might be a soft tissue issue that it's just, hey, we need to do more back work. We need to work on posture. We need to work on flexibility. Other things might go into an area where it's like, hey, you need to go see this person because they're going to be the ones that's going to help you with whatever underlying kind of issues taking place. And so,
Condition.
yeah, that's where having those people in our facilities, if we run in, or somebody's got an injury that then kind of gets outside of our scope, we can then do that handoff and work with them as a kind of a treatment team. But we do the assessment, and then that assessment's going to drive where we go. No different than if you went to the doctor, you want them to do some tests and not just start, oh, we're going to do surgery on this and let's
Right.
that and let's put this, medication. You're like, why? And then, we try and do the same thing as to, I want to give you what you need and set you on that path of success. And I always tell people, I'm like, I'm not looking at you here and today in the moment. What is 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now? How do we set you up where you're not hurting your joints? You're not, needing a knee replacement, or you're going to have to get a hip replaced because you never corrected a movement pattern. And
Ooh.
therefore we know where you're already going. And I think those are the things we do a bigger initial assessment to then help drive a better outcome really long term.
What are I'm sorry to put you on the spot for this one. But what are some of the results that you've seen? Because I guess I don't know why I'm getting more interested the more I'm talking to you myself as we're talking about it. Because for me, I can do walking, I can do
Yeah.
cycling, I can do running because they don't really get me to think that much, right? It's just do more than you did last time, right? Do more of it. But I know I need to get more into lifting and be more care of my joints. But it just feels kind of overwhelming when into that. But I just want to know from like your perspective, like how you feel that works.
Yeah. And no different than if it's something I don't understand my taxes, I go and hire a CPA and say, you know, the tax code and stay up on it. And, I drive a car every day. I don't know how to fix it. I'm going to take it to them. So I think it's like we use professionals in all areas of our lives, but when it comes to our bodies, we somehow think like, I know it, or I got it, or I can figure it out versus, hey, these are the things that we're studying day in, day out, week in, week out, trying to stay on the cutting edge of it. We have things, we can do virtual or online training, and we have an entire app that works that clients can, get that information. So even if you don't live in Colorado, we work with people all over. I actually did a podcast with a lady who lived in Estonia, and she, after we got done, she was like, I'm so into this. We were able to do, training even with a 9-hour time frame difference.
Nice.
And so to me, it's like, it's the education part. And, for some people, it's a huge education gap. For some people, it's like, oh, you just need to make these small adjustments. And it's crazy to see how much more that improves. And so I wouldn't be intimidated by it. It's just starting. And I think, wherever you're hearing this, whether it's, core progression is an outlet for you and you want to do it in a remote capacity, or hey, there's other great, training spots locally to where you are. I think it's go and get the information to make it better. And it just fascinates me that we're so easy and quick to do it in so many aspects of our lives. But the one thing that actually matters more than your car, your taxes is you. And people don't take the time to get to know it, understand it, or go get that expert to help them navigate, quality of life. I was reading something in the last week and they said, as longevity has really become a buzzword and there's been a lot of things, kind of going into that. You have people like Brian Johnson spending millions and millions of dollars to try and reverse his aging and, all these things
I
they said.
watched that whole documentary.
Yeah, they said that exercise might not necessarily add years to your life, but it's going to really have a big impact on the quality of years of life that you have. And, I think if you've seen anyone age, or I've had grandparents that have passed, and fascinating to see the differences of someone who stayed consistent with exercise and someone who didn't. Two very different journeys. And, I think those are things as our population gets older and as younger people are, they're not smoking as much, they're not drinking as much, they're taking more of the advice maybe that our parents tried to give us.
Tried
Now,
to
now it's landing. And so I think those are things as, you know, have a higher quality of life while you're here and make that be something that is more important to you versus another t-shirt or, piece of jewelry or, whatever people spend money on. It's like invest in you. And I think the numbers are supporting that has become a much bigger industry and, people vote with their dollars and they're showing that is important to them and that they are willing to make those types of investments.
Yeah, it does. Like if you take out like obvious, sometimes people just have, obvious issues. It does seem like the quality is vastly different. You can see people in their 60s and 70s, and I've seen even 80s who are just walking around and you wouldn't even know it, right? And you're just
Mhm.
like walking around, they're talking, they're hanging, they're sitting up, sit down with no problem. And you're like, wait, you're 77? That come from? You were just dancing. And then
Yeah.
some people in their late 40s, early 50s who with everything that they do. So you're right. It does feel like it's almost like we spend our money on everything else, but we think about it. And so we do the little things like, oh, I
Mhm.
will go to my gym or I'll buy my thermos to make sure I'm here. But like
Yeah.
really investing into the long term, which requires a lot more effort, does seem to go. But do you have like a favorite case study or testimonial of someone that was like that maybe, you know, is hesitant or maybe they didn't come around and came back later and what kind of
Yeah.
results
No,
those people do?
I mean, how much time we got? I think it's one of those things that I got a lot of stories. I think a couple that come, real quick to mind. Had this girl, Caitlin, did an initial assessment. She kind of was like, I'm not sure. Let me kind of keep trying it on my own. And I said, hey, let's just once a month, we'll do a check-in, do your body fat, kind of see, are you putting on muscle? Are you losing fat? Let's see how things go. Well, we did this for 3 months, no change. And she was at the gym 5 days a week, spending a ton of time there. And it was just, she was doing the wrong things. And so finally, after 90 days, and, 3 months of nothing, I said, are you willing to give me a chance? And she was like, okay, signed up and boom, within that first 30 days, it's like, it's working. She sees it. And I'm like, see, I'm glad that you came around. Had another lady who came to us. She was having a hard time with her husband, conceiving. They were trying to get pregnant. She was so overweight that her body just was prohibiting it because if you hit certain levels of obesity, the body's not ready to go and take on, making a human. So we
Right.
lost 100 pounds. She was able to get pregnant. She put the 100 pounds back on during the pregnancy and then we lost it again. So, 200 pounds on the same person and, phenomenal. She's actually ended up getting certified herself and started training some people kind of wanting to pay it forward. And I've had that happen a couple times where you change someone's life and then they want to go change other people's lives. And, I think those are the types of things looking back, buddies that are in medicine and, went more of that medical route. I think I made the better choice. And, you know, yeah, you fix someone's broken arm. That's cool. This is changing someone's life. And now they're going out and being an advocate to try and help get other people healthy and, super, super cool and impactful to see that take place.
I like that. Yeah, that is some awesome. I don't know why I haven't asked more people about those, but for some reason I was like, man, I want to hear a couple of stories that you have.
Yeah.
When you're thinking about like those stories and how everything's come about, what for you is like the funnest part, the part that you love the most, the part that's like that drives you to go from the 900 square foot to
Yeah.
multiple franchises? What is that?
And I think it's changed. Originally it was that one-on-one interaction and helping people. As the organization has grown and scaled, my my role shifted where I still see, maybe a couple of people a week because I just love being in the studios and doing that, but I don't get to have that level of impact. And so now it's more, how do I help trainers in their career to kind of go out and touch more lives? How do I help my managers to go out and touch more lives? And so, the fulfillment and what gets me up is the morning now is leading the team of people that we have and trying to help them accomplish things. I think this was 2 or 3 years ago. Some of my staff, we sit down, hey, what do you want to accomplish? They all wanted to be able to purchase their first home, and we were able to make that happen for them. And, so those are things where it's like now helping people from more of a career standpoint, a life goal standpoint. Yes, there's still some level of helping people in the physical one-on-one aspect, but I think it's been kind of cool to see that evolve and shift over the course of the company as well.
Nice. Do you think that's what gives you your edge, like over other competition when people are thinking I might want to join an Orange Theory or I want to join Core Progression?
I mean, I could point to a few different things. I think, the group class thing, not that there's anything bad with it. It's not specific. It's just, hey, you're burning calories and, nothing against Orange Theory. I'd rather someone get a membership there and get off their couch and go do something, but it's not specific. It's just very generalized. You got 40 some people all doing the same thing. And, I think with me, I tell people, I'm like, have you ever gotten a suit tailored? It's a very different experience than getting
Very.
one off the rack. It's going to look very different. It's going to feel very different. It's going to cost
Mhm.
different, but you walk out with a fit that's tailored and people are like, whoa,
Oh, yeah.
dude looks sharp versus, hey, I just went to the warehouse and picked something out. And so I think that's where it's different. I think a lot of people are owner operators in the sense that they love fitness and then they just started a business because they wanted a place to do what they love. I think for me, unique in the standpoint, I do love fitness, but I've been more of a business type of a person. And so seeing things from a business standpoint, loving fitness versus, most of the other people that do this, they have one location. Some of them maybe have two. They train from sun up to sundown. They're not really an operator of a company. They own a job and then they just have a place that they get to do that job.
Right.
So, different mindset, different mentality. When you're building something to grow and scale, you look at standard operating procedures different. You look at, kind of the back end of what and how an organization works different than if it was just me. I had maybe a couple other trainers and we just showed up and did our thing. And not that there's a wrong or a right. It was just, I had a different trajectory, kind of vision for where I wanted to take things. And so I think that starts to separate because,
Mhm.
if you're just, hey, I make enough to pay my bills and turn the lights on at my spot, it's a different mindset and methodology than it is, hey, I'm trying to go open up places all across the country.
Right. I love that. If if there was one thing that you just wish everybody listening would know, and it could be about core progression, it could be about yourself, it could be about your journey, it could be about working out, health, taking care of themselves, whatever you feel. As we're starting to wind down, if you could take one thing to everybody they could take away, what would that one thing be that you wish everybody would just know?
Yeah. And this might be a counter opinion to some of what, you go on podcasts or YouTube and everybody's saying one.
Yes.
This might be the dissenting opinion. Not everybody's built to be a business owner. And I think these are things where, a lot of people, especially, it's like, oh, you're good at hair, you open a hair salon. Oh, you're, good at baking, you open a bakery. Oh, you're good at training people, you want a gym. It's a different skill set to be a business owner and things that come with that. And,
Yeah.
I have people that work for me that make way more than people that own their own gym, but there's that pride and ego and, you know, I'm a trainer and now I have my own facility. And it's just, I think as I've done this a long time, not to discourage or dissuade people from chasing their dreams or going after it. Sometimes, being an entrepreneur is actually what they're more built for than being an entrepreneur. And
Yeah.
entrepreneurs work within a system and can help grow and have ideas and can kind of move within an organization. Different skill set than being an entrepreneur. And I've seen it play out. There's, a lot of facilities that open, a lot of facilities that close. And I think, unpopular opinion, because right now it's buzzy to be an entrepreneur, go start your own thing and never work for the man and do this, that, and the other thing. And I've just, if you're not built that way, sometimes it doesn't actually give you what you think it might, just because talking heads are telling you, oh, this is the way to go make your way in the world. And it's hard. And I think people don't talk about how hard it is and the amount of
Yeah.
stress. And, I've seen the meme where it's like, wait, you're willing to give up your 9 to 5 to go work 24/7? Most people won't, or they think they will, but they're not really willing to. And so, I think it's stay true to yourself, know yourself. And, you know, if that's something that is a passion, chase it with everything you have. At the same time, don't just listen to the noise and feel like that's the route you have to go. And, find an organization that you can grow in and do what you do within that organization and make that bigger and better versus maybe trying to go out on your own and deal with what comes with that.
I love that. That's so true. I mean, like even this, I don't fix my fees, right? I don't, but man, I've been having the most fun. I love being able to hop on these podcasts. I love talking to people. I love saving them money, and I don't even got to ask them for a dime. I love it. But it took me a while to find something like this. But you're right, right? I could have, I did the entrepreneurial route, and I do have other entrepreneurial things like real estate. And I think you're in real estate too, from what I see.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
we have other entrepreneurial journeys, but my overall is like, I'm good where I am. I love this. I get to chat with Jon, you know what I mean, for the last 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So I love that, man. I appreciate you dropping that knowledge. So, as we kind of like tune out, how are you outside of work, where you're not helping people change their lives and increase how long they live? What is it that Jon likes to do with his spare time?
Yeah, I'm a big golfer. Love getting out on the golf course and, try and do that regularly. Have a family, wife and 2 kids, and spend a ton of time with them. Also really big on traveling, love good food and seeing the world and going and having new experiences and, just being active, whether that's, living in Colorado, hiking, snowboarding, biking, just doing stuff. Obviously exercise is a big component of that as well. And, I think for me now, getting into my 4th decade and, doing this for a while, it's one of those where, appreciating what you have and trying to slow down and make sure that, hey, you're doing it for the right reasons with the people that you want to be around. And, everybody gets the same finish line at some point. So trying to get there quicker doesn't necessarily make you a winner.
Right. Awesome, man. Cool. And you said you like to travel to eat food. Are you like to pick the same things where you go? Are you adventurous? How are you when you're eating?
I mean, I like trying a bunch of different stuff. So
Nice.
yeah, we were in Portugal this last fall and tried it all. And, I think for me that's a big thing. I tell people, hey, I want you to exercise, but I still want you to live a life. And, it's that balance of not
Yeah.
just sitting there eating such a strict, rigid diet that you miss out on some of those things, but at the same time, making sure that you're also taking care of yourself so that you can enjoy some indulgences from time to time as well.
I love that. I love that. Well, Jon, thank you for joining me today. It was fun chatting with you. It was nice because I wanted to be able to dive into a little bit of a different aspect of the working out. I mean, I loved what you were doing with core progression. So thank you for coming on here, dropping those nuggets, giving people tangible advice and also, routes that they can take. And I appreciate you just coming on here and chatting with me today.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. It's fun to get break it down a little bit.
But what if other people have questions? I have questions. I'm going to bother you after this.
Yeah.
But if someone else has questions, they want to get in touch with you, they want to find out more information, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, coreprogression.com is our website. You can, put an inquiry in there. It lists all the different locations. Like I said, we do things online, we do things virtually. Technology has definitely made the world smaller in that aspect, and fitness hasn't necessarily changed as much, but how we can, use technology and have that interaction has definitely. And so feel free to drop me a note on there, and would love to answer any questions or connect in that form or fashion.
Awesome. I will put all of that information in the YouTube bio so that when y'all click that little arrow, it'll drop it. They'll have everything in there, emails, phone numbers. You got it. But thank you so much again. I appreciate it for joining. And thank you guys for sitting back and watching with us, listening to me bug Jon with a bunch of random questions. I appreciate y'all for joining. So like and subscribe. And even if you have some questions, I would say reach out to Jon. Just ask him a question, get the conversation started. It's nice to have somebody that you can reach out to and ask those random questions. So go ahead and pick his brain a little bit, and don't be surprised if you end up joining along. But thank you for joining. And if you have an interesting business too, like Jon, reach out to me at Tavious at fixmyfeesteam.com to jump on my podcast. Thank you again for joining us, and good night.